Hello, everybody. That was sad and pathetic, but I hate it when people are like, no, let's do it again. I'm not going to be one of those guys. Are you guys excited about Encounter starting? Good, that was better. I appreciate that. I'm excited about Encounter starting, and there's some people I want to recognize, obviously. If this is your first year to come to Encounter, just stand up. We'll look at you in the dark. Give it up for these people. Show them some love. That's awesome. Okay, now sit down. But if this is the first time you were eligible to come to Encounter because you're a freshman, stand up. Yes. Don't you just want to pinch those cheeks? We're so glad you're here. Awesome. Now, what about you folks that just graduated? So yeah, stand up. No, stand up. All these people envy you. That kid envies you so much. He's like, I'm walking out. I'm not doing this. I'm not watching them. Forget those graduates. All right, y'all sit down. It's really neat. I'm glad you guys came. I hope tying the bow on the end of your high school journey was an awesome experience. I have to admit, it was a little surreal for me to see Boston Duncan graduate, okay? I wasn't there to witness it, but I did get to watch his speech, which was epic, people, all right? Boston Duncan is a better speaker than his dad, all right? That's not a blow. Rob's going preach, okay? Boston did awesome, okay? And it's kind of surreal because I've seen him over the years just grow and grow and grow, and the hair grows and the envy grows and all this stuff. And it's been neat to see Boston grow up to finally graduate high school, and now he's going to move on to college. And I've really enjoyed getting to watch like the youth ministers that bring their kids to camp. Do you guys like that? Of course you do, because you guys just pawn over those kids like they're toys, okay? You're like, I want to hold them. No, I want to hold them. I'll change your diaper. No, that's weird. All right, and so it's neat to watch the kids go. You know, a number of them are being watched over in the sub, and hopefully that's going well. But some mom's like, what does he mean, hopefully? But it's really neat. When I think about those little ones, there used to be a show on TV called Kids Say the Darndest Things, okay? And don't act like you've seen it, all right? Like, I don't know that I'm old enough to have seen it, all right? But I've seen clips of it, and it's always awkward when a little one speaks their mind, isn't it? That's always kind of weird. The other day, I went, my lovely wife Angie is over there, and she had me go to Costco to get some stuff. That's always an experience. And I don't like to be in Costco very long, but I went into Costco, and I was waiting in line, and there was this little kid and his mom, okay? And I couldn't hear what she was saying to him. All right? I had no clue. But he was like just talking and babbling, and then he stopped. And he just froze, and he was staring at something. And then I heard him go, Mommy, you said Willy Wonka isn't real. And I don't know what the mom said, okay? I couldn't hear her. But then all I heard him and saw him do was go, well, there's an Oompa Loompa, so he has to be real, okay? What do you do in a moment like that, okay? I just sat there, and I wasn't going to look at that poor person, that small person, okay? I wasn't going to, that's terrible. And the mom started like hovering over the kid and putting her hand on his mouth. It was weird, and I'm like, thank goodness that wasn't my child. But my child has done those things too, okay? My son, I've got a 9-year-old son, Taylor, and he was thinking about coming in here, and I'm glad he didn't. But we just found out that Angie's sister, Bridget, is pregnant, which is really neat. That's great. Woohoo. They've already got 3. They've got an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and now they have an accident, okay? And so That kid's not going to watch this, so I'm safe, all right? But my brother-in-law Kyle and my sister-in-law Bridget, their kids told my kids about, hey, mom's pregnant. And it was, my kids are kind of like, oh, cool, and they're getting all into it a little bit. And we're walking into church, and I'm walking in with Taylor, and Taylor goes, can't believe it. I said, you can't believe what? He goes, I can't believe Bridget's pregnant. And I said, you can't? He goes, no. Isn't she too old for that? And I'm like, looking around like, dude, you cannot say that, all right? Yes, but dude, you cannot say that, all right? And so it was a little worrisome. And then my boy, he's awesome, okay? He, in his whole elementary school, he's in third grade, or he just finished third grade. He had the second most AR points in all of his school. I know. He is a reader, all right? And he's always, I don't know, have y'all seen the movie Forrest Gump? Okay, all right. You know that part where Forrest sees, he goes to Jenny's apartment and little Forrest is sitting there watching TV and Forrest is looking at little Forrest and he gets emotional because he asks, is he dumb like me? Okay, I almost feel like Forrest Gump with Taylor, okay? Taylor's just so smart, but then the other day, we're sitting at the kitchen table, and Taylor goes, yeah, Dad, we're talking, he's trying to act smart. He's like, yeah, Dad, E equals MC squared. It's the theory of gravity, duh. And I was like, I'm pretty sure E equals MC squared is not the theory of gravity. Okay, I thought that in here. I did not tell my son because I didn't want to just, point and laugh at him and be like, you should go back to third grade. To be honest, I'm glad Taylor mentioned that because it made me go look up the formula, which I don't even remember what it is now, okay? But there were some troubling things I noticed when I was researching gravity, okay? The first one is, did you know, just because of the gravitational pull of Earth, that we shrink like a ½ inch every day? That freaks me out, all right? Like, I got heels on these things for a reason, all right? And then like astronauts that actually go into space actually come back taller. 1 inch to 1.5 inches. That's crazy. And then for those, I know you're not worried about it, but those that are getting up in years, like the elderly, they will actually shrink 2 to 3 inches over the course of their life. Now that may not bother you, but listen, I'm 2 or 3 inches away from some little kid at Costco pointing at me and calling me an Oompa Loompa, all right? So that worries me, all right? It scares me. Gravity's it's kind of a crazy thing, but life can be a lot like gravity, can it? Life can weigh us down. And sometimes the things we're weighed down by, they're not that big, okay? It may be we really wanted to get this chair when we tried out for band, or we wanted to be on this team, or I really wanted this grade. It's something that will come and go, and we're okay. But sometimes the things of life, they're heavy. It's mom and dad splitting up. It's a family member no longer being there. And it's something that weighs on our soul. And the reality is the world will look at stuff, the world will look at life and say, do not let life or the circumstances of life dictate who you are. You dictate who you are. And to a certain degree, that's true. And the church has even bought into this like health and wealth gospel. And the church says, listen, teenagers, okay, if you come to youth group, if you go to church, if you don't do whatever it is, fill in the blank, life will pretty much work out the way you want it to. And so we buy into this message that if I just trust God and if I do what I'm supposed to do, there will be no bad things that happen to me. Is that the truth? No. Guys, that's not even biblical. we're going to talk about a guy who had the weight of the world heaped upon him. And I want you to focus on how he responds. I appreciate the opportunity that Cliff gave us today to, for those of you that were here this morning, and he referenced this person, but I want to talk about Job. Okay? What do we know about Job? Job was married. Okay? Good. Good for Job. Job had 10 kids. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. Listen to everything else. Job had 7,000 sheep. He had 3,000 camels. He had 500 yoke of oxen and 500 donkeys. And he had countless maidservants. Verse 3 of Job chapter 1 says, Job was the best man in all the East. You want to know how good Job was? Job's kids, as they grew up, would throw parties, festivals, whatever you want to call them. And all the brothers and sisters, they'd invite their siblings over to their house. They'd have these parties. After the party, Job would go out and he'd sacrifice, he'd make a burnt offering for each child just in case they sinned. That's how good Job was. Just in case. You know what? Let me cover my bases. But then something happens. I'm going to read from Job, verse 6 through 22. One day when the angels came to report to God, Satan, who was the designated accuser, came along with them. God singled out Satan and said, "What have you been up to?" Satan answered God, "Going here and there, checking out things in the earth." God said to Satan, "Have you noticed my friend Job? There's no one quite like him. Totally devoted to God and hating evil." Satan retorted, "So do you think Job does all this out of sheer goodness of his heart? Why, no one was ever so good. You pamper him like a pet. Make sure nothing bad ever happens to him or his family or his possessions. Bless everything he does. He can't lose. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took everything away? Took everything away that was his. He'd curse you right to his face. That's what would happen." God replied, "We'll see. Go ahead. Do what you want to all that is his. Just don't hurt him." Then Satan left the presence of God. So this meeting happens. And Job must be a big deal because God throws out Job to Satan. Says, "Have you noticed my friend Job?" And Satan throws some things out saying you're pampering him, you're babying him, you're taking care of him. I promise you, if you took some of these things away, if you messed with him some, he would curse you to your face. And God says, "Go." Listen to what happens. So sometime later, while Job's children were having one of their parties at the home of the oldest son, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys grazing in the field next to us when the Sabians attacked. They stole the animals and killed the field hands." I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened. While he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, "Bolts of lightning struck the sheep and the shepherds and fried them." That would be kind of cool to have seen, all right? "Burn them to a crisp." I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened. While he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, "Chaldeans came from 3 directions, raided the camels, and massacred the camel drivers. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." While that guy was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, "Your children were having a party at the home of the oldest when a tornado swept in off the desert and struck the house. It collapsed on the young people and they died. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." Job got to his feet. He ripped his robe, shaved his head, then fell to the ground and worshiped. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return to the womb of the earth. God gives and God takes. God's name be ever blessed. And not once did Job sin. Not once did he blame God. So Job loses all his children, his possessions, his livelihood, and how does he respond? He tears his clothes, he shaves his head, and he worships. That's how you would do it, right? That's not how I would do it. If that happened to me, I would be screaming, I would be crying, snot would be running everywhere, I would say things I'm not supposed to say, I would hit people, I would be a mess. But not Job. Again, remember what Job says. God's name be ever blessed. You know why he says that? Because Job's focus isn't Job. It's God. And if that was the whole story, that'd be a pretty cool story. Okay? But it continues in chapter 2. One day, the angels came to report to God. Satan also showed up. God singled out Satan, saying, "And what have you been up to?" Satan answered God, "Oh, going here and there, checking things out." Then God said, "Have you noticed my friend Job? There's no one quite like him, is there? Honest and true to his word, totally devoted to God and hating evil. He still has a firm grasp on his integrity. You tried to trick me into destroying him, but it didn't work." And Satan answered him, "A human would do anything to save their life. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took away his health? He'd curse you to his face. That's what would happen." God said, "All right, go ahead. You can do what you like with him. But mind you, don't kill him." Satan left God and struck Job with terrible sores. Job had ulcers and scabs from head to foot. They itched and oozed so badly that he took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself. Then he went and sat in a trash heap among the ashes. So Job doesn't just have to lose family. He doesn't just have to lose possessions. He doesn't lose just his livelihood. Then his self becomes afflicted with sores, ulcers. And the picture we get of Job is in a trash heap amongst the ashes, grabbing broken pottery to tend to himself. The story doesn't make sense to me. You know, I'm the kind of guy, I'd like, A plus B equals C. I want to connect the dots. And I want to read this story and go, Job did something wrong. That's why he's going through this. I want Job to be like Genesis 3. You remember what happened in Genesis 3. Adam was instructed, don't eat from one tree. One tree. And what happened? Just Genesis 3, 1 through 7. The serpent was clever. More clever than any wild animal God had made. He spoke to the woman. "Do I understand that God told you not to eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "Not at all. We can eat from the trees in the garden. It's only about the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, 'Do not eat from it. Do not even touch it, or you will die.' The serpent told the woman, 'You won't die. God knows that the moment you eat from that tree, you'll see what's really going on. You'll be just like God, knowing everything, ranging all the way from good to evil.' When the woman saw that the tree looked like good eating and realized that she would get what she would get out of it, you know what she did? She took it and she ate the fruit. And then she gave some to her husband and he ate it. And immediately they knew what was going on. And they saw themselves naked. And they sewed fig leaves on together as makeshift clothes." Now I can read that story and connect with it. You know why? Because I'm like Adam and Eve, and you're like Adam and Eve. There's things we know we're not supposed to do, and we do them, and there's consequences for that. Okay? We can connect those dots. And I want Job to fit this mold, but he doesn't. He falls into a different category. It's one too familiar with some of us. And you see, sometimes in life, things happen that can't be explained. Sometimes things happen that we can't rationalize, we can't justify. Because guess what? This world is a broken world. And bad things happen here. It's not our home. Because that is her chair. That chair just doesn't belong to her, but that's where she would be sitting tonight if she was here. Now, I know some of you, you know her better than I do, okay? For some of you, she was a best friend. For others of you, she was in your youth group. There are some of you that would come to camp and you would see her and you would hug her and you would love on her and y'all would go to different classes together and you'd go be a part of the drama together. Every time I saw her, she'd come give me a hug. And we talk about home. I'd only see her a couple times a year. She'd tell me how her parents were doing, how her sister was doing, how she was doing. You see, she was just there. And then one day happened and she's gone. No goodbyes. Nothing explained, just gone. And I struggle with it. I wrestle with it in here because you know what? It doesn't make sense. It's not right. It's not right that she's not in that chair. It's not right that you don't get to see her face. It's not right that I don't get to hug her anymore. It's not right that her parents don't get to hear her sing the songs that she would always sing. It's not fair. And what am I supposed to say to people who are living in that hurt? How do we embrace that situation? Do we just say, I'm sorry for your loss? Because that's not good enough. Do we say, God has a plan? Well, let me tell you what, I don't like the plan. What do we do to people who are living in that? What do we say to them? Where do we go? Do we talk to him? How do you talk to a creator? How do you talk to a God? How do you talk to a Savior when you don't even understand what he's doing and why he's doing it and why he's allowing it? Sometimes we just want to look to God and say, where are you in the midst of this chaos? Sometimes we just want an answer. What if they are his mercies in disguise? Because I can look at that whole row of people right there, and I don't know what to tell them. I don't. I can tell them I love them. I can tell them I pray for them. But I'm just an outsider. I don't know the pain that they're experiencing. And it's weird for me to be at an encounter and not see Marquis Wiest sitting out in the audience. Doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right for me to not see this crazy blonde-haired lady sitting in the back, Kathy Jo Aduddle. She's not here anymore either. Because guess what? This world is messed up and it's broken. But I take solace in Job's words. When Job says, his wife says, just curse God and be done with it. Let him smite you. And Job says, you're talking foolishly. We take the good days from God. Shouldn't we also take the bad? We're going to have bad days. We're going to have days that are out of our control, and nothing you say, nothing you do, no matter how many times you pray, no matter how many times you go to church, no matter how many times you do the right thing, bad things are going to happen. That's just going to happen. That's this world, people. But it's not our home. And I appreciate the way Job continues his story, and his friends come, and Job starts to ask questions. Job starts to want some answers, and God talks to Job. And does God give Job answers? No. But God reveals himself in his might and his majesty. These are the words of the Lord in Job 38. Why do you confuse the issue? Why do you talk without knowing what you're talking about? Pull yourself together, Job. Up on your feet, stand tall. I have some questions for you, and I want some straight answers. Where were you when I created the earth? Tell me, since you know so much. Who decided on its size? Certainly you know that. Who came up with the blueprints and measurements? How was its foundation poured? And who set the cornerstone? While the morning stars sang in chorus and all the angels shouted out in praise, who took charge of the ocean when it gushed forth like a baby from the womb? That was me. I wrapped it in soft clouds and tucked it in safely at night. Then I made a playpen for it, a strong playpen, so it couldn't run loose, and said, "Stay here. This is your place." Your wild tantrums are confined to this place. In verses 16 through 18, he says, have you ever gotten to the true bottom of things? Explored the labyrinthine caves of the deep ocean? Do you know the first thing about death? Do you have one clue regarding death's dark mysteries? And do you have any idea how large this earth is? Speak up if you have even the beginning of an answer. God says, can you catch the eye of the beautiful Pleiades sisters or distract Orion from his hunt? Can you get Venus to look your way? Or get the great bear and her cubs to come out and play? Do you know the first thing about the sky's constellations and how they affect the things of this earth? Can you get the attention of the clouds, the Lord says, and commission a shower of rain? Can you take charge of the lightning bolts and have them report to you for orders? What do you have to say for yourself? Job, what do you have to say for yourself? Who do you think gave weather wisdom to the ibis and storm savvy to the rooster? Does anyone know enough to number all the clouds or tip over the rain barrels of heaven when the earth is cracked and dry and the ground baked hard as a brick? God spoke to Job. Not the way Job wanted, not the way Job requested. Job didn't get his answers. He got the Lord's. And listen to how Job replies. I'm convinced you can do anything and everything. Nothing and no one can upset your plans. You asked, who is this muddying the waters, ignorantly confusing the issue, second-guessing my purposes? I admit it, I was the one. I babbled on about things far beyond me, made small talk about wonders way over my head. You told me, listen, and let me do the talking. Let me ask the questions. You give the answers. I admit it, once I lived by rumors of you. Now I have it all firsthand for my own eyes and my own ears. I am sorry. Forgive me. I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again. I promise. I'll never again live on crusts of hearsay and crumbs of rumor. That was Job's reply. Did Job get put in his place? Kinda. But Job walked out of that having a better understanding of who God is. Job understood that in the midst of all the pain and all that junk, who was there? God was there. Job understood, you know what? If you have doubts, you can take them to God. Why? Because He's God. God can handle your questions, people. God can handle you showing up to a church camp and maybe not even believing in Him. That does not change the fact that He's God. And like that song reminds us, in the midst of the darkness and in the moments of despair, God is there. And God can be at work. I don't know why you're here this week. I don't know if you came because a friend told you to come. I don't know if you came because your mom and dad said you have to go to church camp. But there's some of you, you're here because you have pain in your heart. And you really just want to leave that at the throne of God. You want to look up to God and lift that to Him. You can do that this week. There's those of you that doubt. God is there. He's ready to have a conversation with you. Some of you came ready to lift up your praise, lift up your desires, lift up your wants. Some of you may ask God questions like Job asked, and you might get an answer, but you might not. Instead of the answer that you're seeking, God may reveal Himself to you in a way that is powerful and profound. For He is the Alpha and the Omega. He was and is and will be. And when this world is pushing you down and the world is forcing your face to the ground, this week you have the opportunity to stop and lift your eyes to the heavens. I hope you are ready to encounter God this week. I don't know how He's going to manifest Himself to you, but I fully believe He is going to show you something. Let's stop looking down at us. Let's stop looking at our brokenness. And let's lift our eyes to God. Let's pray. God, You are good. In the midst of the trials, in the midst of the darkness, in the midst of the things that we don't know or comprehend, You are good. And Father, I'm thankful that we have a Creator that is big enough to hear our cries and our pleas. A Creator who's big enough to handle our anger and our confusion. God, I pray for the people in this auditorium. If there's pain, I pray they lift it up to You. If they're worried about something, God, I pray that they will stop focusing on themselves and start saying, what about God? How is my situation, how is my life impacting what God has in store for me? Father, this week we're going to be reminded that it's not about us. It is about You. And for that we give You thanks. God, do amazing things this week. Not because it's Encounter, not because there's a bunch of people watching, but do amazing things so that people may come to know You are Yahweh, You are God. We love You, Father, because You first loved us. It's in Your Son's name we pray. Amen.